prise de débat. Resuming debate, the honourable member for Guelph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the world is changing. Climate change poses serious environmental challenges. A growing number of Canadians, particularly our youth, fear they'll never be able to enter the housing market. And growing concerns over the job market have Canadians anxious. These uncertainties mean new challenges for Canadians, but they also represent a source of opportunity, an opportunity to showcase Canadian creativity and innovation, economically, socially, and environmentally. This is why I rise today in support of the government's proposed budget 2017, because this budget will prepare Canadians for the future, addressing economic, environmental, and social development for our country. This budget looks to secure and improve upon the gains made in Budget 2016, growing the middle class. Canada has an economy that's strong, flexible, and full of potential. Canadians reflect this as entrepreneurs and as innovators who can adapt to changing markets, as people concerned for our natural heritage and through our concern for each other. This budget puts Canada on track to build a strong, innovative, and green economy and improve our social support networks, focusing on mental health and housing. Budget 2017 provides Canadians and Canadian businesses the tools necessary to continue the economic growth we're experiencing under our government. After many years of flat economic results, last year our economy grew by 1.4%, and this year the OECD is predicting growth of 2.4%. Accurate labour market data is essential in order to continue our growth trajectory. Budget 2017 commits $225 million over 4 years and $75 million after to support improved labour market information, skills development programs, and measurement of results in Canada. Knowing where business is experiencing shortages and filling those gaps is essential as our economy grows and as people are now retiring from the workforce in greater numbers. Knowing exactly what skills are in demand allows us to target the gaps in our economy. This also means addressing the needs of those struggling to join the middle class. As it stands, Canadians on EI cannot access training programs. Preventing unemployed Canadians access to training programs is simply unacceptable. This is why the government is not only reversing this backward policy, but it's investing an additional $900 million in training over 6 years. We need to prevent Canadians from needing EI in the first place, which is why we must address the serious problem of youth unemployment. Budget 2017 builds on Budget 2016 to allow part-time students to apply for Canada Student Loan Grants, and this has increased grants by 50%. To further expand employment opportunities for young Canadians, Budget 2017 also proposes an additional $395 million over 3 years for the Youth Employment Strategy. Investing in Canadians is a crucial step to building the economy of the 21st century. But governments must also strategically invest in industries where we can be a global leader. Clusters are dense areas of business activity that contain large and small companies, post-secondary institutions, and specialized talent and infrastructure. Budget 2017 commits to strategic investments in agricultural innovation, advanced manufacturing, clean energy, biosciences, and digital technology. These actions will grow the economy and promote the livelihood of middle-class Canadians. And Guelph can and will play a major role in these areas. This budget's almost written for Guelphites. The environment is also a cornerstone of this budget. As this government has repeated many times, the economy and the environment go hand in hand. This is why Budget 2017 proposes establishing centers for climate services. These centers will improve access to climate science and regional climate resilience centers. The centers will work with local, provincial, territorial, and Indigenous partners. This will make it easier for governments, communities, and decision makers, businesses and organizations to access data and information on climate science. Investing in green public transit is also crucial. Budget 2017 commits $17 million to develop and implement heavy-duty vehicle retrofits. This plan also includes a carbon pricing program to incentivize innovation and efficiency. This move will reward creative and innovative businesses and raise much-needed revenue for the provinces to spend. These investments will help Canada to reach its greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and ensure a safer, cleaner world for all Canadians. This budget addresses systemic social problems which have often been ignored. Since forming government, we've lifted 18 long-term drinking water advisories in First Nations in our first year. We're committed to eliminating all boiled water advisories, working on solutions with our Indigenous communities, researchers, training providers, and businesses. The benefit of our approach is that it's based on long-term planning initiated by First Nations leaders, which is why Budget 2017 follows through on the promises made in Budget 2016 to commit $1.8 billion over 5 years. Of this, $275 million in targeted funding has already been allocated, and 201 projects have already begun. First Nation communities are leading the development of these initiatives, informing the government and partners of what their communities need and want. We'll get this done, and we'll get it done right. The will is there, the capacity is growing, and people are truly committed to finding long-term solutions based on a new trust. Addressing the mental health crisis among Indigenous groups is also a priority for this government. The effects of depression and suicide, as well as other systemic health issues in Indigenous communities, are widespread and unacceptable. Budget 2017 proposes to invest $828 million over the next 5 years to address the immediate health priorities of First Nations and Inuit peoples. Two areas of social concern addressed in this budget are health care and affordable housing. We're also investing $7 billion over 10 years to create 40,000 child care spaces. Mental health is an increasing concern for all Canadians, and Budget 2017 proposes to invest $11 billion over 10 years to support better home care and mental health initiatives. Budget 2017 also proposes to create a Centre of Excellence on PTSD and related mental health conditions. Government has committed $17.5 million over 4 years and $9.2 million every year after. As our health minister has said, there's no health without mental health. Addressing the unique nature of mental health issues is long overdue. Adequate and affordable housing is a general concern for all Canadians, and that's why we're investing $11 billion into the National Housing Strategy to develop a stock of affordable rental housing and other housing to make better quality life for Canadian residents. The CMHC will make up upfront contributions to providers of affordable housing. So, Madam Speaker, Budget 2017 offers genuine and innovative solutions to the challenges that face Canadians. Through strategic investments in the economy, the environment, and social programs, This budget follows through on the ambitious mandate Canadians gave the government in 2015. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Bow River.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to follow up, thank the honourable member for his speech there today. One of the concerns that I would have is the infrastructure piece, for example, in water Indigenous places. As I've looked at this and talked about it for 2 or 3 years through the campaign, being here, seeing the budget, it's one thing to build infrastructure, but the piece that I'm looking for, and I think that's the critical piece, coming from a municipal background, it's easy to build those things, but it's the 24/7 trained staff that you have to have in place. If we didn't have them in municipalities, we got into trouble, and that's where many smaller municipalities are. So I can't see the piece in there where there's the education, the training for people in those rural communities to maintain a $200 and some odd million of infrastructure. If you don't, it's just going to be gone in a few years. So maybe you could respond to that critical piece of training, and good jobs.
The honourable member for Guelph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thanks to the honourable member from out west for his astute observation on this. I flew up to Dryden, Ontario in January of this year to look at the training centre that's been established there, because we know that there's no point in spending money on infrastructure if there's nobody there to operate it and operate it effectively. So part of our budget is focused on skills development and training within First Nations, as well as infrastructure investment, and hand in hand, those two investments will help us get to the clean water that our First Nations brothers and sisters deserve.
Commentaires, questions and comments. The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for his comments. He talked about the importance of housing, and there's no question about that, and I think in every community there's a great need. The government has made a lot of talk about it, but yet on the ground we have yet to see action. I know in the city of Vancouver the money has not flowed even from 2016 in that announcement. We have a crisis on our hands with people who are in dire need for affordable housing. We have co-ops who need that assistance as well, units that have already been lost because of the government's lack of action in this regard, and that's affordable housing that we cannot afford to lose. And so my question then to the member is this: on this national affordable housing program that the government likes to brag about, when will the money actually be spent on the ground to build real units, real housing, affordable housing for the people who need it now?
The honourable member for Guelph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for her passion and commitment to helping people get into affordable housing. When we're working as the federal government to establish housing priorities and housing trajectories, we're also working across Canada with our provinces and territories to get housing investments into their budgets. And so in our first year of being in government, we worked with the provinces and territories to get their budgets to match government money coming from the federal government. And at that stage, we're now starting to roll out projects which have to go through the bidding process, and it has to go through municipal approval process. So we're working with all three orders of government. It does take time, but we are on the right track, and we will see progress. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. L'honorable ministre.
The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
May I first start by congratulating my colleague for Guelph for his excellent speech, also mentioning that I have seen his work in his writing in the previous months, and I know how committed he is to working towards the development of his community and how dedicated he is to work for the welfare of his constituents. Now, I would like to invite him to give more examples of how the investments that our government is making in communities and families and workers, how these investments will make a difference in the lives of his families and his communities in his writing.
A brief answer from the member for Guelph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for his question. I'm honoured to answer him that we are looking at the social impacts through the Canada Child Benefit, which he introduced last time, which was one of the most significant steps the government has ever taken in Canada. And now we're following up with $11 billion, which hasn't been invested since the 1970s, to get us onto the track of having affordable housing projects created in our communities, thanks to his leadership and vision and the people that work with